Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Now today, I'm going to be going over the complete guide of the Scalar Peak dungeon. Now this dungeon is very easy if you know how to defeat the bosses, because there's only 5 bosses and not very many garbage rooms. Though this dungeon has some very difficult bosses, and if you don't know what to do, you're going to be very lost. So I want to get out of the way really quick that this isn't a chest guide or anything like that. I'm not discussing loot. I'm not talking about how to get a skin. I'm only specifically talking about how to kill all of the bosses and just going over a few tips for killing some garbage, but that's about it. Later I will be discussing on how to get the skin. I will be talking about Fang Layer and all of that stuff later down on the line. So I hope you guys do enjoy this video, but as of right now I'm just talking about the dungeons for Scalar Peak, and I hope this is the best possible guide that I can make for you guys. So if you enjoy, please leave a like and let's get started. So first thing to know before you get into this dungeon is that there's only a few ads in the entire dungeon. They're very simple. There's nothing super complicated. There's no mini bosses or anything like that. They are very basic, and there's not very many garbage rooms anyway, so you're not going to be facing a lot of these guys. But the only few enemies that you will fight are skeevers, ogres, gargoyles, and giants. There is absolutely no catch to them, except for the only thing where when you kill skeevers and a couple ogres and giants, they have a chance that they will be poisoned. They will have a little green area of them that makes it to where if you walk in that red AoE, you will be poisoned. So it makes it a little bit difficult to loot if you don't have auto loot on. So you might want to do that if you're running over them, or you can just die real quick. It's really not a big deal if you die running over the poison trying to collect it or something. So make sure you keep that in mind, that you will probably die a few times just by looting these skeevers that have a poison effect. I'm making sure to show it on screen right now for you guys, but it's not that big of a deal, so don't worry about it, but just make sure you have that in mind. So the first boss you will come across is very quick after the first few rooms, and this is definitely the hardest boss to fight if you don't know what to do. These are 2 pairs of ogres called Orzon the Foul-Smelling and Hortis the Rancid. These guys are very difficult and have some extremely special abilities. So there is a few things that I have for you guys to know. So the first thing you want to know is that you want to keep Orzon the Foul-Smelling away from Hortis, because if you don't, they will both receive a damage increase and they will keep their attacks separate. So it makes it more difficult to fight them if they're close together, and they get a damage buff. So the best way to prevent this is you want your tank to taunt Orzon and keep him on the edges of the circle of the room. So it's very important that you do this because you don't want them to get a bonus in damage. And I'm going to move on to the second thing, which is an obvious one, but you want to make sure you stay out of the AoE attacks that both of them have, because they both have very strong AoE attacks that will kill you very quickly. And then make sure you are aware that those yellow circles that you see running around will freeze you, and they don't cause any damage to you. But I'll talk about them in a little bit. They can be very beneficial, but they will not cause damage to you. They will just slow you down. And then you will also notice the pillars that will spawn, and I'll also talk about that in just a second. So the third thing to know is that one of the 2 very special abilities that these guys have is that Hortis the Rancid will use a AoE effect that you will almost die instantly from. You will see him charge it up, and then you will also notice that these pillars of ice will spawn, and you need to run to those pillars, because the only way not to take damage from this incredibly powerful AoE attack is to hide behind the pillars. They will be knocked down by his AoE slam, and that is the only way not to take damage. If you do not run behind the pillars, you will be taking a ton of damage, and it is a very powerful attack. Now the second special ability is that Orzon the Foul-Smelling will target you with a snow trimmer, and you'll see this little text pop up, and you'll see a red circle underneath you showing you that you're being targeted, and if you don't move, it'll literally almost one-shot you, especially if you're DPS with low health. So the only way not to get hit by this is to run into the little yellow circles that freeze you. You want to run into the spikes as quickly as you possibly can, and it'll freeze you before the trimmer can hit you, and you can easily break out of it once you're done by using the escape buttons and simply run out, and you won't take any damage at all. Now, the last thing you want to keep in mind about these guys is whenever you kill these guys, it will end their special spawn. So if you notice that I said that Orzon the Foul-Smelling will target you with his trimmer, well, Hortis spawns the yellow freezing things that will freeze you so you don't take damage. So if you kill Ranaris, all of a sudden these yellow spawns will disappear. So if you get targeted by the trimmer, there's absolutely no way to counter it. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that you kill them at almost exactly the same time, because if you kill one of them very, very quickly and then you just have the guy in the middle who's just targeting you with his AoE effect, and then you have no way to defend yourself. So you want to make sure that you kill them at almost the exact same time. It's not a huge deal if you don't kill them at the exact same time, but you definitely want to make sure that you're trying to kill them as close together as you possibly can. Now after you kill these guys, move on to the next boss.
They never bothered me the last time I was here. What manner of illness has this cult created?
This next boss is called Doyle Ironheart. He has a difficult name, I don't know, give me a break. He's a gargoyle, and he is a very easy boss if you know what to do, and he has a hard hit, but it's pretty simple to defeat him. So the only thing you really need to know of note is that your tank really needs to be on him, and you need to have your healer watching him at all times, because he has a very, very strong AoE attacks that your tank might not be able to dodge. So if he does get hit, he should have enough health to where he'll survive one, but your healer is going to want to watch him very, very carefully because of his very, very powerful attacks. Now, the only other thing of note really besides his few attacks is that these stone balls will spawn. Now, they're going to spawn every 10% of the boss's health that you deplete, so you want to make sure that you aren't killing the boss super quickly, or else a ton of these balls will spawn, and these balls will freeze your teammates, and they will be stoned until you run up to them and you use the synergy to unstone them. So they're extremely annoying. They don't really deal a ton of damage. They're not very hard to defeat, but if you were really just burning this boss, then there's going to be a ton of these stone guys, and it's going to be very annoying if your team is getting stoned the entire time. So make sure that if somebody does get stoned, unstone them with your synergy, and make sure that you're being careful of these ball things. But besides that, that's really it. He's a very, very simple boss. Now this third boss again is extremely basic. She's just a giant, and her name is Matriarch Eldest. She is probably one of the easiest bosses in this entire dungeon. So when preparing for her, there's a few things to make note of. Do not step in the water around her because it is poisonous. The whole thing is like icy water. You want to make sure you're staying on the ice because the water will slowly damage you, but it will be enough to kill you if you only have a little bit of health, or slowly if you stand in it for too long, it will kill you. Now, just like the last boss, another thing to note is that every 10% of her health that is depleted, an ad will spawn, and it's like a weird ghost thing, and is honestly extremely powerful. And if you let it have 2 or 3 spawn, those things will really quickly take out your damage, and it's just important to stay on top of them. She has a few AoE attacks, but nothing super difficult. Now, the only other thing of note is that when you're fighting her, there will be a hole that forms in the ground and it'll turn yellow. It's in the ice, and basically it's very, very bright. It should take like 2 or 3 seconds before it fully forms, and your tank needs to recognize that there's a hole forming in the ground and he needs to stand on it. Now, if he doesn't plug the hole, as they say, then a poison will shoot out of the ground like from the water, and it will slowly basically paralyze your entire team and damage them for about 5,000 or 6,000 health. Now, it's not an extremely detrimental health damage, but it's a really big deal because you're like paralyzed for almost 2 seconds while the boss or any ads can be doing damage to you, and no one can heal you or anything like that. So you're very vulnerable if your tank doesn't plug these holes, and they're pretty simple because there's a very small area and it'll only spawn on the ice area. So it's pretty easy to do. You can't really mess this up. You might only die like 1 or 2 times if you don't know what you're doing, but besides, don't step in the water. Make sure to plug the holes and be very careful of her AoE attacks and the ads. It's very simple. Now, this fourth and final boss is definitely one of the most difficult bosses that you will probably face for a very long time. He's probably the hardest boss in the entire thing, and it sums up very simply. His name is the Plague Concoctor Mortu. He has a base of 5.8 million health, which is literally insane. It's some of the highest health you will see on a boss in a dungeon. Now, the only reason people have a really hard time killing him is because he has so much health. It can literally take about 5 to 10 minutes to kill this guy in one try. If you do it all in one try, it can take 5 to 10 minutes. And it's very difficult because there's so many things going on as well. It's not he has a ton of health, there's a lot of steps. So the first thing you need to know is that he has a very unique ability where he will poison the group. He's called the concoctor, so it makes sense. His poison varies in several different ways. He can affect you in any way where he's draining stamina, magicka, or the amount of healing you will receive. It's all random, and he has so many different poisons that he can use. Well, while you get poisoned, you have to wait for the NPC guy, his name is Jorvold, to craft a cure. That's basically what he's doing while you're fighting this guy the whole time, as he's trying to craft a cure. And while you kill the ads, he is supposedly gets materials from them, and he'll make the cure for the poison. So the quicker you kill the ads, the quicker he will make a cure. Then after he makes the cure, about 30 seconds to a minute, he will throw it out in the room, and you have to stand where the cure is. There's usually about 3 or 4 spots where he throws it, and you have to stand there, and you only have a limited amount of time to receive the cure and to cleanse yourself of the negative effects. If you don't, these negative effects will stay with you, and then when the guy poisons you again, you'll have double negative effects. It can be life drain or anything like that, which can really be game changing, especially if it's taking away your magicka or stamina, and that's what you need to perform. And after you receive the cure from the guy, you will get a few short bonuses, like just ultimate regeneration faster and random things like that. Now, one final thing to make sure you are paying attention to, besides all of the crazy ads and garbage going around, is that a very similar type of plugging to the giant is going on. If you'll notice, all of the grates that are around the room, they will slowly start to turn yellow, and then they will explode, spitting out poison that will damage your entire team. If the tank doesn't stand on top of the plugs, then everybody is going to be taking damage. It's not like going to stun you like the other damage did, but it's still very powerful, and it takes out a ton of health. And the only thing about it is the room is so big, so it's very difficult for the tank to get to the vents sometimes. So if you're not extremely careful about watching the vents as your tank, then you're going to be getting a lot of poison damage very, very constantly, because this is happening like every 10 or 20 seconds. A vent will pop up and you'll take poison damage, and then if your tank is not running over there to plug it as quickly as possible, which is honestly a very difficult task because he needs to focus on tanking as many things as he can, and he needs to be paying attention for the plugs that are scattered across the room, and it is a huge room with like 30 vents. So he is a very, very difficult boss. Make sure you're trying to get the cleanse as often as possible. Make sure that you are trying to plug all of the vents, because that deals a ton of damage. And then just make sure that you are trying to burn him as quickly as you possibly can, because the longer you're out there, you know, the higher chance, with so much health, the higher chance you're going to get frustrated because, you know, oh, maybe we got him down to 1,000,000 health and then we died. So you just need to make sure you're staying calm, following all the instructions, and being extremely careful and being alert. Alright, so now we move on to the final boss, which is called Zan the Skullcaller, which is a dragon priest. Her dragon left her years ago, and now she's waiting for it to return, or something stupid like that. I honestly haven't been paying attention to the story. So honestly, this boss isn't that bad because she has a timed event where she does everything very, very consistently and in a pattern. So as soon as you figure out the pattern, it's incredibly simple to just say, oh, you got to do this and this. Of course, she's very difficult to defeat at first, but after you figured it out and you've played it a couple times, and if you're playing with experienced players, it's definitely not that hard. So a few first things to know, which is her basic abilities before I get into the rotation, is she has a very heavy shield attack, which I'll be showing you, and she'll stun you with her shield attack, and she'll knock you on the ground, which is pretty crazy, and it's very powerful. Her second one is she has a fire breath where she'll target you, and you can still run around, and she'll just follow you with this fire breath, and you'll have the same little target that says, oh, this little thing is happening, like you're being targeted by her fire breath, and you can still run, kind of like the trimmer, except you don't have like a block necessarily, you just have to run around and dodge it. But she also has a flame attack where you get locked in place, and it will have notification for you and your teammates telling you you are locked in place and telling your teammates to help you out. So the only way to counter this, which is where you're locked in place and she's streaming fire at you, which will almost certainly kill you, is your teammates must stand in front of her and shield you by holding block, so taking the damage for you or effectively blocking it for you. because you can't defend yourself in this situation. So if you're playing with a bunch of random people, then you're probably going to die every time that happens. Now, the final thing that she has that's a basic attack is that the tank needs to keep her as close to the dragon statues as possible, because you'll see it on screen. If you do not keep her next to the dragon statues, she will become stronger, and the dragon statues will also emit a poison every so often if she's far away from them, and it'll deal a ton of damage. It'll be a huge cone that comes out very quickly, and it's extremely powerful, and that won't happen at all if you keep her to the statues, though this is difficult because she moves around a lot, so it's kind of hard to do that. But as often as you possibly can, keep her next to the dragon statues. So now that we know her basic attacks, let's look at the chain, because she does this chain over and over again until you kill her. And after you figure out this pattern, it's just so simple. So it will always start where she does this thing where she makes herself invincible with this ice fortress, and you have to kill these ice giants called simulacrums. And you will see this little text on screen telling you that she's invincible and you need to kill these guys in order to move on. There's only 3 or 4 of them. They're usually very easy to kill, and a lot of times we like to use them to revive each other if someone's dead, because they don't attack you, and they do attack you a little bit, but it's usually very basic attacks and you're not going to be taking a ton of damage. So it's a good time to revive somebody if somebody's dead. Now, immediately after you kill these guys, she breaks her invincibility, and she will have this massive AoE attack that covers the entire room, and people will freak out, don't know what to do. But the only way to save yourself from this massive AoE attack is you have to find this shield that is placed randomly in the room. It's like a shield she accidentally placed down or something, and you have to run in there as quickly as possible not to take damage, because she will cast this AoE very, very quickly. So as soon as you kill these ice giants, you need to be looking for the shield and run in there to protect yourself, because if you do not run into the shield, you will definitely die. The AoE is so strong, it can take out a low level tank. So you need to make sure you're trying to find the shield as quickly as possible. Like I said, sometimes it's difficult because it spawns randomly and it can be hard to find, so you need to be on the lookout for it as soon as you kill that last ice giant. Now, right after you run into the shield, she will do this very crazy like jump thing where she jumps into the shield like she's trying to destroy it. She'll say something like, "Nah, you can't use that," or something like that. So she'll run in there and she'll use this AoE attack that covers the entire shield, and she'll break the shield, and she does it within two seconds of her being finished with her AoE attack. So as soon as she does her AoE attack and the red is gone, you need to run out of the shield, because she will run in there very quickly, and that AoE attack she does inside the shield is almost just as powerful, and it'll send you flying and stunned. So it'll almost kill you, send you flying and stunned. So it's not a good thing to be stuck in. Now that is basically all of her attacks. She'll do this cycle over and over again where she has this invincibility, you have to kill these guys, then she does this big AoE effect, you have to run in the shield, then you have to run out of the shield before she jumps in it, and that's basically it. She has a bunch of special abilities and very annoying abilities. She is extremely tough because she just has so much stuff going on, and everyone needs to be very alert, everyone needs to be sure that they know exactly what's going on, but she's not that bad, really. Like, if you know what to do, she is not that difficult. So just make sure you're being alert, you're following these rules. If you have any questions in the comments, please let me know, because I've been playing this dungeon for the past several days now. I finally had a very good game where I just flew through it and I completed it pretty easily. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this was helpful. This is a pretty long video, and honestly, this video has taken me a lot of time. I've been working on this video for a long time. People might be like, "Oh, why isn't he making videos?" And I'm just grinding this video out. I'm trying to make as many of these videos as I can, so I really hope you guys enjoy. I really hope this helps someone out, and if it does, make sure you let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Pump Play signing off.